A random stranger killed this woman because of a small argument. The innocent child of the widow was unable to protect his mother while he watched her being killed. Song-soo, the man, was taken into custody and later tried. In fact, it turned out that he had previously been punished for identical offenses. But given that there was no desire to kill, that Song-soo was receiving treatment for his mental illness, and that he did his utmost to make amends with the victim's family, the judge gave him a sentence of 3.5 years in jail. When Ji-young, the child, heard the unfair decision, he was so angry that he couldn't stop crying. Ji-young was intimidated and subjected to verbal abuse by Song-soo prior to his removal from the court. 12 years later, Song-soo was still causing needless harm to others. He attacked a bus driver for no other reason than that the driver had contacted the police to report him for causing disturbance. After a few punches, Song-soo frequently continued to harm the bus driver until he was seriously damaged. He saw someone standing outside the bus while he persisted in threatening the other passengers. He dismissed it and headed home, but that enigmatic figure stopped him. Song-soo was punched by the man, and when he attempted to strike back, he was slowed down. The enigmatic man started pounding Song-soo in the face until he passed away while sporting brass knuckles. This man was Ji-young, who 12 years prior had lost his mother due to Song-soo. Ji-young spent the most of his time at the police academy preparing to become a police officer. His instructor, Jun-yob, was impressed by Ji-young's remarkable judo abilities and thought he was prepared for fieldwork. Ji-young was a dedicated police officer by day, but at night, he became a vigilante who hunted down criminals who had gotten past the system. He saw two individuals urinating on someone's glass one night, frightening the resident. Ji-young intervened, quickly rendered the criminals helpless, and quickly left the startled woman in her wake. He saw another news report that evening about a doctor who continued to treat patients while sexually abusing them and recording his crimes. The physician received a 6-month term without even having his license revoked. Ji-young took matters into his own hands after seeing the shortcomings of the law in this particular situation. Ji-young barged into the operating room and gave the doctor a forceful punch, just as he was about to attack another patient. Ji-young told the doctor to find another career and stop practicing medicine as he collapsed to the ground. He would suffer the repercussions if he disregarded Ji-young's orders. Conversely, we witnessed journalist Mirayo interacting with Chun, her supervisor. She displayed to him a series of violent crimes in which the victims were the criminals who had all been freed due to ludicrous judicial decisions. She felt that the news coverage of such situations had sparked outrage. She went on to make her case, claiming that someone was holding offenders accountable for their actions and that, as a result of legal loopholes, they were being released without receiving the appropriate punishment. She thought that in order to increase ratings, they needed to broadcast the story, because people desired a dark hero like this. The boss approved of the plan, and soon after, the news was broadcast, informing the public about a vigilante who aided the downtrodden and dealt with the offenders. In an interview, the woman Ji-young had previously assisted praised Ji-young for her assistance and for making her life simpler. Hearing the woman's appreciation for the vigilante made Ji-young, who was watching the news in the police school, feel satisfied. He opened his phone to conceal his damaged hand and discovered that articles supporting the vigilante had already begun to appear. However, the news organization was pleased with the success of their show about the vigilante. The occurrences only happened on the weekends, as Mirayo had deduced from the pattern. In order for them to broadcast and increase their ratings, she waits for another incident to happen. But a week has gone by, and the vigilante hasn't taken any action. Mirayo advises the boss, who is worried, to expose the CN case's perpetrator, so the vigilante will read the news and fall for it. As agreed upon, Harang, the child sex offender, is identified in the news broadcast. Despite committing a horrific crime against a pupil, he was given a meager 7-year prison sentence and claimed temporary insanity. Despite his horrible crime, Harang is now living among them. The news reporter tells the people, having recently been released from prison. After watching the news, Ji-young knows he needs to take action. However, the news causes public indignation, and protesters gather outside Harang's home to call for a life sentence or the death penalty. Happy that her strategy is succeeding, Mirio is also waiting outside Harang's residence. Ji-young uses the police computer, which has information on every case, to learn more about Harang. He thoroughly examines the case files, prepared to discipline the offender. Mirio starts to follow Harang after he leaves his residence that evening. But at the port, she loses him. Later, we witness Harang showing up at his victim's building dressed as a delivery boy. To protect her, a policeman is stationed outside her flat. Harang assaults the policeman right away after pulling out a knife. Despite retaliating, the cop is unable to stop the attacker. The officer gets stabbed by Harang, but instead of retreating, the officer continues to struggle until Harang flings acid in his face. The girl leaves the apartment after hearing the commotion, but Harang catches her. She hits him in an attempt to get away, but she is captured again. Harang plans to murder her because he feels that she is to blame for the curses directed at him. He believes that none of this would have occurred if he had murdered her at the time. He is going to hurt her when Ji-young steps in and throws a strong blow that knocks Harang to the ground. Harang tries to fight back, but Ji-young's judo skills are too strong for him. Ji-young throws him against a window, shattering it, hits him in the face, and breaks his arms. When Harang begs for forgiveness after losing, Ji-young tells him to write an apology on the wall. On her way to the girl's apartment, Mirio happened to run across Ji-young, who had just left work. Mirio shows up at the building shortly after and poses as a resident. While the on-duty cop is being rescued, she is able to enter the building. She can't help but smile as she gets to the site and sees the message written in Harang's blood on the wall. The message makes it quite evident that the vigilante will ultimately apprehend the evildoers and hold them accountable for their actions. News of Harang's passing circulates. The public is now certain that a vigilante exists, but he is viewed as a killer by the police. They think the vigilante planned to kill Harang from the beginning rather than killing him while assisting the victim. The police chief gives Officer Eun-chan, who is in charge of the investigation, instructions to prevent the vigilante from being portrayed as a hero in the media and instead to paint him as a killer. After being called to assist with the investigation, Officer Jun-yob reaches the scene of the event and discovers that the perpetrator, also known as the vigilante, is aware of the police investigative process because he left no evidence behind. People have been phoning the police to complain about the inquiry because they think the vigilante did the right thing, Officer Eun-chan tells him. Mirio's news organization is also under backlash for presenting a criminal in an engaging way to the general population. Despite Shin-yoon's frustration, Mirio helps him understand that all they are doing is raising their channel's ratings. She has actually discovered 3 more cases to draw the vigilante's attention once more. The next day, a story about a man named Do breaking into his former employer's home with a group of escaped teenagers and killing the mother and children was shown on the news. Do attempted to place the entire blame on the small guy. Sun-il got away with the crime because of his age, which led to a light sentence. After watching the news, Ji-young makes the decision to look into the case further. He conducts his studies that evening after surreptitiously leaving his room. Armed with all the information he needs, he searches social media and locates the club Sun-il often goes to. Sun-il responds to a critical comment on one of her posts by threatening to kill the person who left it. Ji-young goes to the club with his pals after realizing that Sun-il is still leading a criminal life. Fortunately, Sun-il is there conversing with some teenagers. After learning from a female that Sun-il is a drug dealer, Ji-young decides to look into the matter more. He learns that Sun-il's drug trafficking operation is structured such that the boss is not caught, only the dealers are. Since the dealers conduct cash transactions, it is challenging to track them down via internet payment methods. Ji-young follows Sun-il to the spot where he frequently distributes drugs to other dealers one weekend after he leaves the club. Sun-il discovers a note with a phone number in his car when he gets back. "Turn yourself in," the note says. Sun-il dials the number as instructed and finds it is that of a DEA agent. Sun-il is led to assume that someone is actively attempting to catch him when the agent suggests that he keep quiet for a time. But the police raid the club when he goes back there. Sun-il makes a last-ditch effort to evade capture. When Sun-il gets back to his house, the door is open. Ji-young showed up ahead of him and took his money, it turns out. When Sun-il runs at Ji-young, who has poured gasoline on the money, Ji-young gives him a hard blow and tells him to repent of his faults. Sun-il chuckles, without expressing regret for the killings he carried out. Ji-young is angry and burns the money, which starts a fight between them. Sun-il is severely beaten after attempting to use a shovel to attack Ji-young. Ji-young uses a chain to strangle him and keeps punching him until he pleads for forgiveness. Sun-il is then made to apologize to the deceased as Ji-young plays a video of the family he killed. Sun-il is discovered dead when the police arrive to the place the next day. Infuriated by the vigilantes' ongoing killings, the cops promise to stop them. Because of the increased public interest, all agencies and police officers work together to create a special investigative headquarters. The population appears to support the vigilante despite the police's efforts to discredit him. In order to solve the most recent crime, Jo Hyun, the team head of the Regional Investigation Unit, meets with Se-yeol, Sun-il's associate, and attempts to scare him by using his power to bend a coin. After that, he leads Se-yeol outside and inquires as to whether he noticed anyone strange close to Sun-il at the club. Jo Hyun gives Se-yeol a final warning and then hangs him from a railing after punching him in the face when he doesn't cooperate. Se-yeol acknowledges that Sun-il told him to call the DEA prior to his passing in a last-ditch effort to save his life. After pulling him back up, Jo Hyun gets a call from a senior. Jo Hyun vows to stop at nothing to apprehend the vigilante. Copycat vigilantes have started to appear as a result of these recent instances, enforcing the law on their own. Before attacking a criminal to death, some adolescents set his car on fire. There are 18 such cases nationwide, and the people in charge think they are acting morally to prevent continuing atrocities. Jo Hyun is committed to apprehending the true vigilante as soon as possible. People are now more terrified of the vigilante than of going to jail after Se-yeol admits to all of his misdeeds. Later that evening, Ji-young discovers another instance where a truck driver unintentionally struck a delivery man. Shurgwa, the driver, killed the victim by running the vehicle over him once again rather than dialing 911. Even though Shurgwa killed someone on purpose, he only received a 1-year prison sentence. Ji-young makes the decision to act after reading the case's public sentiment. The next day, he starts organizing his next course of action after taking pictures of the data. Shurgwa is confronted by his mother, who grabs him by the collar and expresses her displeasure at his brief sentence. Shurgwa yells back, saying that he is now innocent because he has already served his punishment, rather than offering an apology. After listening in on their talk, Ji-young discovers that Shurgwa is not sorry for what he did. Later that evening, Shurgwa is lounging at a bathhouse when a masked vigilante approaches him. Without providing Shurgwa an opportunity to change his ways, the vigilante kills him by drowning his head. The genuine vigilante, Ji-young, is shown to be a phony, though, as he is currently assisting his elderly neighbor in his neighborhood. The news informs Ji-young about Shurgwa's passing, which is now being described as one of the vigilante's killings. There are no hints regarding the true vigilante when Jo Hyun gets to the crime scene. Mireille, who had intended to raise attention to the truck driver's issue by highlighting it, is infuriated when the story is shown on another news channel. Additionally, a show about recently released people convicted of horrible crimes is broadcast on a rival news channel. Taking the bait, the phony vigilante kills each of these people before they had a chance to change their ways. Shortly after, the phony vigilante addresses the Korean people in a video message sent to a broadcasting station. He acknowledges that vigilantism is illegal in the video and shows sympathy for the victims. Nevertheless, he states that he will continue his actions regardless of the repercussions. Ji-young is furious as he watches the video because the phony vigilante's acts are damaging his reputation. However, Jo Hyun thinks that if the true vigilante is not apprehended quickly, he may begin to feel unstoppable because of the public's admiration and might start acting more aggressively. The phony vigilante is eventually apprehended by the police, but Jo Hyun quickly spots him as a fraud. The real vigilante would not make a cowardly face upon being caught, Jo Hyun says in response to Officer In-chan's question about how she knows this. Later, a man named Sun-do screams at Ji-young's elderly neighbor for obstructing him while he is out gathering cardboard. While the elderly woman is taking a minute to react, Sun-do hits her with his automobile, seriously injuring her. After seeing the incident, A shopkeeper from a nearby establishment confronts Sundu about his callous behavior. Sundu attacks the shopkeeper in retaliation rather than out of regret. During the ensuing altercation, the shopkeeper prevails. The cops show up shortly after and take Sundu into custody for purposefully hurting the woman. Media coverage of the incident highlights the legal system's shortcomings. Ironically, the shopkeeper who attempted to shield the woman is imprisoned for confronting Sundu while he is in the hospital. When Ji-young learns that someone attempted to hurt the old woman he loves very much, he becomes enraged while watching the news. Ji-young starts his investigation as darkness falls. The elderly mother, who is bedridden, is threatened by Sundu's brother, who is trying to settle the matter for money. Ji-young pursues Sundu's brother to his turf in the dark, kicks him quickly, and strangles him. At the same time, Mirai informs her squad of a fresh plan to keep an eye on the hospital where Sundu is being treated in the hopes of spotting the vigilante in action. Jo Hyun shows up at the hospital with his group as well. Mirai strategically places cameras while closely monitoring the action. The on-duty policeman gets a call at that very moment reporting that someone has hit his car in the parking lot. This acts as a distraction, enabling Ji-young to enter Sundu's hospital room covertly. Ji-young orders Sundu to tell the judge that he sincerely regrets his acts and asks for the maximum sentence while choking him. Ji-young threatens to return and make sure Sundu endures considerably more suffering than the old woman experienced if she disobeys. The police race to Sundu's hospital room after learning that the on-duty officer had received a bogus call. Jo Hyun meets Ji-young, who is wearing a doctor's coat for disguise. Jo Hyun, who believes the man in his 20s wearing a doctor's coat is the elusive vigilante, directs his team to look for him as soon as they find Sundu restrained on the bed. When Officer Inchan arrives at the security room, he discovers that every CCTV camera is broken. Ji-young, meanwhile, makes his way down the steps, just escaping capture. After making the decision to turn himself into the police, Sundu grabs his phone and calls his brother. The fake vigilante suddenly shows up and knocks him down. Sundu is killed when the imposter vigilante throws him out of the window as Ji-young is leaving the building. As reporters get ready to report on yet another horrific incident, police officers assemble around the lifeless body. Ji-young watches the phony vigilante leave the hospital, still confused. After witnessing the imposter flee in an ambulance, Ji-young follows and gets inside to learn more about this phony vigilante. The impersonator compliments Ji-young's efforts and shows appreciation for his job while driving the ambulance to a rooftop parking area. He admits that he helped remove Ji-young's evidence, so the police couldn't find him. The CCTV cameras were actually tampered with by him. The imposter offers to join Ji-young as a sidekick and help him capture larger targets. But in Ji-young's opinion, the imposter is a vicious killer who denies his victims any opportunity to change their ways. Unexpectedly, the fake vigilante turns out to be just as strong as Ji-young when a fight breaks out. Ji-young explains his vigilantism attitude during their conflict, acknowledging that he takes action when the law fails, but denouncing the imposter for tarnishing his name. Ji-young fights the imposter until he is suspended against a wall. The imposter begs Ji-young for assistance, even offering to take off his disguise, but Ji-young tells him to do it alone and leaves the scene. Jo Hyun is attentively going over the hospital staff information in the meantime. Ji-young's face is obscured in the video that Mirai is able to get. The phony vigilante sends Ji-young a message claiming to be his alibi while he is attending to his injuries, but Ji-young doesn't change his reaction. Jo Gayek, the vice chairman of DK Group and the main sponsor of the broadcasting station where Mirai works, is identified as the imposter vigilante the following day. Gayek visits the station after discovering that Mirai has a video of Ji-young and offers to sponsor it, enabling Mirai to openly discuss the vigilante in her stories. Mirai, though, is unwilling to give up her individuality. To get right to the point, Gayek praises the vigilante and takes the USB to remove any proof that could be used against him. In the meantime, the police carefully review the evidence gathered at the hospital, noting indications of precise preparation and a thorough comprehension of their investigative techniques. Jo Hyun starts to worry about a potential link between the police and the vigilante. When Jo Hyun meets Jun-yup at the police school to talk about the inquiry, he briefly runs into Ji-young. Jo Hyun briefly suspects Ji-young after remembering his run-in with the vigilante, but he brushes the idea aside. The vigilante may be a police officer. The two speculate in a meeting with Junyup. After the meeting, Jeong watches Jo Hyun from a distance as he leaves the academy. Jo Hyun later goes to a restaurant to watch CCTV footage, only to find that the films have already been viewed by another person. When Jo Hyun discovers it was Sundu's brother, Sunail, he finds him and confronts his gang. In a furious fight, Jo Hyun easily defeats them all despite being outnumbered. Jo Hyun is attacked again when Sunail shuts the security gate. But Jo Hyun quickly subdues the men with incredible strength, leaving them sprawled on the ground. He shows off his incredible strength by breaking past the security gate and confronting Sunail, telling him to cease his own probe or suffer dire repercussions. Professor Junyup asks Ji-young about the facial injuries during a lesson. Ji-young ascribes the injuries to a workout with his gym instructor. A policeman shows up with a female who thanks Ji-young for saving her the night before when she was harassed by a drunken man before Junyup has a chance to continue the narrative. After initially being perplexed, Ji-young chooses to comply after realizing that this could be a tactic utilized by Gaek. Ji-young responds that he believed a fight between a police university student and a citizen could lead to issues when asked about the made-up story about his injuries. Ji-young realizes that he might require Gaek's assistance along the way. Mireille pays her pal Disuk a visit at his workplace the next day. When she asks about a business named Seoul Future Resources, Disuk discloses that it is involved in a number of illicit activities, such as running the biggest illegal gambling website in Korea and trafficking in drugs. It becomes evident that this business had ties to Deok, the drug dealer Ji-young killed. In addition, the owner of the business, Kim Samdu, is notorious for his illegal actions and has lately avoided prosecution in spite of overwhelming evidence. Disuk proposes that Mireille go with him to see Yoon Jae-hak, an actor who says he knows something about Seoul Future Resources. They are startled to discover Yoon Jae-hak dangling from a rope when they arrive at the actor's house. The two attempt to prove murder, but the police reject their accusations after finding a suicide note close to the body. Frustrated, Mireille asks Disuk where the evidence might be found. Disuk remembers that the actor abruptly moved the meeting spot, suggesting that the evidence might still be present. Ji-young calls Gaek in the interim to set up a meeting close to the bus terminal. Ji-young is led to the meeting place by a girl Gaek dispatched when she arrives. But it soon becomes clear that Jo Hyun is keeping an eye on Ji-young. Jo Hyun approaches Ji-young after the girl leaves and identifies himself as the leader of the task group looking into the vigilante. Jo Hyun expresses his suspicion that Ji-young is the vigilante and issues a warning to stop his behavior. Jo Hyun reveals that his objective is to stop the vigilante rather than jail him, since doing so could make him a hero and win him sympathy from the people. Ji-young later gets in touch with Gaek and tells him to clone Jo Hyun's phone, adding that he will think about collaborating with Gaek later. Disuk and Mireille leave at the same time for the actor's designated spot. They are shocked to learn that it is a container that contains Seoul's illicit servers. Mireille records the computers as they collect evidence, finding evidence of QQ currency mining. Unknown person enters the container abruptly after spotting Disuk and Mireille's automobile outside. The man finds Mireille when she is hiding beneath the table. Disuk steps in and heroically seizes the intruder by the back. Disuk bravely tries to protect Mireille, but he is stabbed numerous times and dies to give her time to flee. Mireille manages to get out of the location while the attacker tries to capture her once more. When she and the police return later that evening, the container is empty. Neither Disuk's body nor any signs of the laptops are present. Chief Superintendent General Lee Jae-hyuk, who gave Jo Hyun the assignment to apprehend the vigilante, calls him in the interim. Jo Hyun is instructed to stop the vigilantism by end-of-month Jae-hyuk, who emphasizes that a realignment is coming and that he does not want the current state of affairs to impede his advancement. In the meantime, another program of Mireille's news station reveals the illegal actions of the Seoul Corporation. According to the investigation, traces discovered in the container Mireille visited show that Samdu, the chairman of Seoul, planned an illicit cryptocurrency transaction utilizing QQ coin worth an astounding 800 billion won. Screenshots of conversations with the actor, who disclosed Chief Superintendent General EOM Jae-bok's backing for Seoul, are included in the program. When he is observed talking to Samdu and planning their next course of action, this involvement is verified. Mr. Bang, who regularly works with Samdu for illegal purposes, is identified as the murderer of Disuk. Mr. Bang dispatches a man to Mirai's office building to carry out the order to kidnap her. The attacker throws Mirai into his car, but before he can flee, Jo Hyun shows up and gives him a forceful slap that renders him unconscious. Then, similar in the Sewell case, Jo Hyun cautions Mirai from giving the vigilante any more victims. Jo Hyun warns Mirai of the repercussions after she disregards his advice. In Jo Hyun's vehicle, the man who attacked Mirai regains consciousness. He tries to resist, but Jo Hyun's quick blow makes him realize that his only choice is to give up. When Jo Hyun questions him, the man reveals how Samdu uses Mr. Bang's services for a number of things, including the kidnapping of Mirai, which he was tasked with doing. Jo Hyun is currently en route to the place the man previously went, when he learns that it is Samdu's farm, where he commits his horrible crimes. After taking his shield from the automobile, Jo Hyun confronts Samdu's guys in a heated altercation. Jo Hyun uses his incredible power to methodically defeat each opponent. With a big trophy in his hand, he shields himself and strikes with force. He quickly renders every man in his way incapable of moving. The cops show up at the site shortly after, covering scores of bodies, some of which are being eaten by pigs. Jo Hyun chooses to control the situation by portraying the men at the farm as vigilantes rather than revealing Samdu's actions. Samdu's property is portrayed by the police as the scene of the vigilante murders, and they even make up the story that they have found the victim's DNA. Ji-young follows his next target, Junk, a drug criminal with 3 previous sexual assault convictions, in order to refute the police's made-up story. Ji-young steps in, attacks Junk from behind, and knocks him to the ground just as he is about to attack another woman. Once Junk has been subdued, Ji-young takes a diary that has important details regarding Samdu. News outlets then reported on the current occurrence, claiming that the vigilante was responsible for Junk's death. The broadcasts exposed Jo Hyun's fabricated story by revealing a message left at the crime scene. Jo Hyun is furious because this incident thwarts his intentions. However, Mirai is in a positive frame of mind after being fired by her supervisor for allegedly portraying a criminal organization as heroic by labeling them vigilantes. But Mirai feels justified with the vigilantes' recent appearance, demonstrating that she was correct all along. When Ji-young gets home, he runs into Jo Hyun, who follows him to a bridge. Despite Ji-young's temporary success, Jo Hyun eventually catches up with him. He offers to help Ji-young escape the situation and exhorts him to give up vigilantism. Ji-young, unwilling to comply, claims that Jo Hyun handles his matter informally and obeys directions from others. Ji-young wonders why he need to follow such a man. A fight breaks out, and Jo Hyun easily defeats Ji-young since he doesn't see him as a serious threat. Ji-young is urged to stop his vigilantism by Jo Hyun, who maintains that the police will take care of the fallout from the chaos he has caused. He underlines that by enforcing the law himself, Ji-young has gone too far. Even after being severely beaten, Ji-young is unwavering in his resolve to continue helping the weak in their fight against the harsh and scary legal system. Jo Hyun becomes so irritated with Ji-young's perseverance that she loses it. In order to put an end to what he believes to be Ji-young's craziness, he chooses to kill him. But Ji-young escapes and offers Jo Hyun an arrangement. He says he will cooperate with Jo Hyun if he can show that the law still works by bringing Samdu and General EOM justice. Ji-young will, however, take matters into his own hands to put an end to the two's unlawful actions if Jo Hyun does not punish them for their crimes. General EOM gives Jo Hyun a call the following day and tells him to resign from his position as the investigation's lead. When Jo Hyun inquires as to whether it has anything to do with the Sewell issue, General EOM tells him to ignore the rumors in the media and quit his job right away. Jo Hyun becomes suspicious of this, feeling that something is amiss. Ji-young gives Guk the assignment to set up a studio for Mirai in the interim, giving her a forum to freely talk about the vigilante and reveal Samdu and General EOM is the aim. Guk responds that his goal is to locate the vigilante when Mirai asks him why. When questioned about her next course of action, Mirai reveals her intention to reveal Samdu's behavior, compelling government organizations to open an investigation. Guk emphasizes that they are on the same side and supports Mirai. As she begins her performance, Mirai calls on the audience to support her in her fight against Samdu and General EOM. She makes it clear that she will not commit herself and that if she dies too soon, it will be due to murder. She discloses that the real vigilante is actively fighting these crooks by using her platform. Her broadcast seems to be shifting the tide against him, which infuriates General EOM. The new team leader assigned to capture the vigilante is Nam Yong-il. As soon as he gets there, he breaks apart the current team. Ji-young explores the diary he found while getting rid of junk in the meantime. It shockingly uncovers that my TM Church's Pastor Shin is managing Samdu and General EOM's money and engaging in money laundering. When Ji-young discovers one of Samdu's friends transferring money between overseas accounts, he surprises him with an attack that knocks him out cold. He confiscates a USB drive that is proof of Pastor Shin's role in Samdu and General EOM's money laundering. Ji-young spots Guk outside the window during this time. After looking at it, Guk begins to run away from him, so Ji-young follows. When Ji-young catches up with Guk, he admits that he finds his spontaneous departure exciting when asked about it. Ji-young is now open to working together. He tells Guk to show his face. As instructed, Guk presents himself to Ji-young, who then gives him the USB that was taken to bring to Mirai. The plan is to get rid of Pastor Shin and have Mirai reveal the contents of the USB, which will cause a stir in the community. The offenders will probably be exonerated by using their political and financial ties. This prepares Jo Hyun to attack Samdu and reveal the proof. Guk expresses worry and cautions that pursuing Samdu could lead to Ji-young's death. However, Ji-young insists that it wouldn't be a sad way to end his adventure. Ji-young quickly disables Pastor Shin's guards as he bursts into his office. Pastor Shin tries to escape, but Ji-young catches up with him and, in a cruel turn of events, strangles him to death. As word gets out, the vigilante is blamed for Pastor Shin's death. Although Ji-young had anticipated this development, the religious community is shocked. They now proceed to the second part of their strategy, which is to provide Mirai with the proof against Pastor Shin. General EOM calls Samdu immediately since he knows he might be the next target. Samdu calmly reveals his counterattack, which calls for the eradication of Jo Hyun, Mirai, and the vigilante in order to clear the entire mess. Guk claims to have his own investigative team devoted to gathering evidence as he passes the USB to Mirai. We see a glimpse of Mr. Bang and his right-hand guy En-wei, prepared to act, as Mirai goes online to reveal the truth about Pastor Shin. Jo interrupts Mayo's broadcast as he rushes to her office. He warns her that she is risking trouble and possible danger if she exalts the vigilante only for the sake of ratings. Mayo seems unfazed and determined to achieve her goals in spite of Jo Heen's harsh counsel. Mr. Bang ambushes Jo Heen as he leaves the building and tries to stab him with a knife. Jo Heen blocks the first blow, then throws Mr. Bang into the front seat and starts punching him in retaliation. In the middle of their altercation, Mr. Bang escapes the vehicle. Jo Heen is about to catch him when he is thrown against the car's door by Mr. Bang's powerful right-hand man, who turns out to be just as strong as Jo Heen. Jo Heen gets into a heated argument and briefly wins the battle. But at a pivotal point, Mr. Bang steps in, allowing the huge guy to get up and attack Jo Heen once more. Jo Heen is restrained by Mr. Bang's right-hand man when Mr. Bang stabs him in the belly, causing him to feel waves of excruciating pain. Jo Heen musters the strength to defeat both attackers in spite of the pain. He is unable to continue the battle, nevertheless, due to the severe bleeding. The attacker is forced to flee as Jeong unexpectedly shows up and fights Mr. Bang. The vigilante is responsible for saving Jo Heen's life. Security footage shows Jeong fighting the thugs and helping Jo Heen, despite the fact that he escapes undetected. When Guk learns about the incident, he begins to wonder why Jeong would want to save Jo Heen. However, Jeong reveals his actual goal, which is to make Jo Heen a vigilante. Samdu, meantime, lashes out at Mr. Bang for the botched murder attempt on Jo Heen. He is strongly told to back off by Mr. Bang, who says he will handle things his way. At the same time, Samdu's goons are working to retrieve the QQ coin's secret keys from the server. Smoke fills the structure, breaking their concentration. In the midst of the confusion, Jeong appears and attacks the two guys, taking advantage of the chance to get the private keys and leave the building while the office is on fire. After that, he leaves a bag full of cash outside an orphanage. As it turns out, he wrote in Sam-doo's office, "I've got the private keys. I plan to sell the QQ coin and donate the money before I make the donations. Sam-doo, JB, and the hitman should surrender." Mayo broadcasts this information on her channel, providing strong evidence of Sam-doo's involvement in money laundering. Previously without proof, government authorities now have the right to detain and confront Sam-doo. Using his understanding of the QQ coin's intended usage for political financing, Sam-doo confronts JB at his home. Sensing pressure, JB offers Sam-doo a 6-month jail sentence as a way to defuse the situation. He feels that this is his only option for removing himself from the spotlight. Sam-doo expresses his frustration and rage at his right-hand man for not catching the vigilante and stopping Mayo from disclosing their operations. Mr. Bang, in the meantime, decides to take matters into his own hands and plans the orphanage owner's murder. He sets it up such that it looks like the vigilante's creation. However, the police and media believe it to be the action of a criminal organization seeking revenge on the vigilante. Gong contacts Gik in the middle of the night after realizing how urgent it is to stop more innocent people from dying. Gong feels driven to take action before more lives are at danger, even if he is aware of Sam-doo's ruse to enlist the vigilante. Given that Mayo's life is now in danger, he explicitly instructs Gik to watch her closely. Sam-doo's right-hand guy and his entourage assemble outside Mayo's building with nefarious intent, as expected. Mayo quickly sets smaller cameras in her studio after spotting the impending threat through the CCTV camera, documenting the incident as it happens. She provides the public with a live internet update on the grave situation. After spotting the monitoring equipment, the attackers begin a violent spree by methodically dismantling it. She keeps the public updated even while they're trying to find Mayo. Sadly, the live stream is cut off when they eventually locate her and destroy her phone. But Gik steps in just in time to stop them from kidnapping her. He confronts the attackers with a baseball bat and stops their effort to hurt Mayo. When Namyeon-gil and his group get at Mayo's studio after seeing the live stream, they find it deserted. They are shocked to find Mayo seated there, acting as though nothing had occurred. They take her to the police station and ask her how she managed to miraculously escape the dangerous position. Mayo, who chooses not to reveal Gik's identity, implies that someone must have stepped in to help her after watching the live broadcast. After leaving the police station, Mayo decides to take a cool bath to unwind. The lights abruptly go out in the middle of this, implying that someone is not wanted in her residence. In the meantime, Namyeon-gil shows up at the police school to speak with Jong. Because he left the academy the night of Mayo's attack, he is being investigated. The fact that the phone used to sell cryptocurrencies was turned on at the school lends credence to this idea. Jeong later leaves to see Gik. At the same time, Jeong learns via a friend that Officer Namyeon-gil is doing research at the police school. Officer In-khan promptly notifies Namyeon-gil of the arrival of the forensic report about the location of the phone. They follow the clue and discover the address that leads to President JB's office. In order to shift suspicion toward the president, Jeong turned on the phone in JB's office and left it there. Jeong also finds a burner phone that JB used to call Sam-doo during the search. When Namyeon-gil shows there, he finds both phones. Enraged by the search of his office, JB confronts them. Namyeon-gil exits the office after telling JB to confess before the forensic reports are released. As a result, JB takes extreme precautions to stay hidden. Namyeon-gil's car crashes into a truck on his route to the forensic office, resulting in his untimely death. Jo-heen, who is recuperating, finds out about his colleague's passing in the interim. When Jeong hears the news, he is shocked. He is approached by Jo-heen that evening. Jeong tells him that he brought Officer Namyeon-gil to the evidence that JB was guilty. Jeong says he is determined to take matters into his own hands because he is angry about the killing of an honest police officer. Since he feels the system has failed to provide justice, he reveals his intention to deal directly with everyone accountable for the unfortunate event. However, it is revealed that Mr. Bang has abducted Mayo on JB's orders. In an effort to get information on the vigilante, he is torturing her. Mayo is resilient in spite of the suffering and won't tell the truth. When Gik gets to Mayo's house in the interim, he finds out that she was kidnapped. He quickly lets Jeong know, and the two of them work together to plan their next course of action. The vigilante confronts Sam-doo's men with force as they make their way to his office. Jeong interrupts a goon who is speaking to Sam-doo and makes him read a message. Jeong offers a compromise. He is prepared to give back the private keys to the QQ coins he stole in return for Mayo's release. After finding out, Sam-doo gets in touch with Mr. Bang and offers him Mayo in exchange for a sum 5 times larger than JB's. Mr. Bang is first opposed, but after learning that Jeong is coming to save Mayo, he changes his mind. He accepts the arrangement because he wants to exact revenge for their previous altercation. In contrast, Sam-doo gives his right-hand man orders to gather all of his men so that they might murder the vigilante, Mr. Bang, and Mayo. Later that evening, Sin-wook, a friend of Jeong's, comes up to him and worries about Gong's recent lack of attendance. Sin-wook knows something is wrong, but he doesn't ask Gong any questions before departing. Jeong is advised by Sin-W to put going to school first. As this is going on, Jo-heen, driven by his desire to exact revenge for Yeol's passing, gets Sam-doo's gang members who have been captured ready for the fight. Sam-doo follows Gong's instructions and goes to the stadium the following morning, while Mr. Bang lets go of Mayo and takes her to the same spot for the exchange. Arriving with their sights set on the CCTV cameras to identify the vigilante, Sam-doo's men evict the area with force. When he finally arrives, they see a man walking into the stadium wearing a black hoodie. Nevertheless, more people in black do the same. It turns out that Gango has planned a themed performance with everyone wearing black, using his power as a businessman. Sin-wook is in the audience, which is surprising. In keeping with his word, Mr. Bang shows up. While Mr. Bang's right-hand man, Sodol, slips in with the crowd to complete the exchange between Mayo and the private keys, Sam-doo's men enter the stadium. He chases after Jeong after spotting him, but gets lost in the crowd. Jeong seizes the moment, quickly guiding Mayo away from the mob while holding her hand. Sel catches up to them as they flee. Gek deftly positions himself in front of Sam-doo, drawing his men's focus and guiding them away. In order to conceal themselves behind a car, Jeong gives Mayo the order to begin a live stream. A fight breaks out between Sodol and Jeong as she starts the program. When Jo-hun discovers the live stream while working out, he quickly heads to the stadium with the Sam-doo gang members who have been apprehended. As Sam-doo gives his troops the order to kill everyone, including Mr. Bang, Mayo, and the vigilante, mayhem breaks out. Gek fights on the ground and Jeong, standing on a bus, faces the attacker. On her live broadcast, Mayo documents the whole event. When JB's superior, the chairman, finds out what is happening, he gives JB the order to immediately put an end to the turmoil. As Jeong is in danger of being captured during the fierce battle, Mayo comes out of hiding to divert attention from him while Sam-doo's troops pursue her. Jeong intervenes to keep her safe, and they take sanctuary in a bus, while Sam-doo's ruthless goons hunt them down. Jo-hun shows in amid the confusion and orders everyone to give up. When Mr. Bang notices that his guys are donning police jackets in defiance of Jo-hun's orders, the situation takes a funny turn. After ordering his minions to murder Jo-hun, Sam-doo turns his attention to Jeong and brandishes a knife. A surprising ally, CW, enters the picture as Jeong is overwhelmed. During the subsequent scuffle, Sam-doo stabs CW. Sam-doo is knocked down by Jeong, but before he can take any further action, everyone is forced to scatter when police cars arrive. With Sam-doo's soldiers pursuing, Jeong is desperate to capture him. Gek blocks their path, allowing Jeong to resume his hunt. Sam-doo, Mr. Bang, and Jeong engage in combat, and Jo-hun quickly enters the conflict. A frenzied altercation breaks out between them. Jeong faces Sam-doo, while Jo-hun faces Mr. Bang. JB emerges as the door to what looks to be a huge water storage tank is abruptly slammed shut. Before shooting Sam-doo to death, he chastises him for his financial failures. JB pulls out a gun and starts shooting at the others, making them run for cover. The neighborhood floods as a result of JB manipulating the water tank valves. As the revolver empties, he reloads his weapon and keeps shooting at Jo-hun and Jeong. Jo-hun helps Jeong ascend the building. Jeong successfully defeats JB on the metal bridge after a heated battle. Enraged beyond measure, Jong attacks JB with a relentless volley of fists. Jo-hen steps in, telling Jong that the law should take care of JB and that their duty is done. In an unexpected turn of events, Jong is hurt when Mr. Bang throws a knife at him. After that, JB grabs a revolver and shoots Jo-hen, Mr. Bang, and Jong, wounding each of them. Jo-hen, fed up with JB, makes the decision to act alone. He kills JB by suffocating him with a forceful punch to the face. Mr. Bang tries to attack Jo-hen in the midst of the confusion, but Jong steps in and fatally stabs Mr. Bang in the chest. The site becomes a scene crowded with police and media following the fierce altercation. Mayo is later called in for interrogation. She reveals during the interrogation that the vigilante was Suk, who was slain. She decides not to disclose the true identity of this vigilante project. The following day, while being treated in his bed, Gek regains consciousness. Surprisingly, it turns out that Gong, his right hand, took care of him and deleted all of the CCTV evidence. In the meantime, Jong mourns the passing of Tsin-wook, a close friend. Later, when speaking with Jo-hen, Mayo describes how her father was killed due to an unfair charge. Surprisingly, even when everyone knew the facts, no one offered to help. Mayo was forced by this tragic event to support the vigilante, who came to represent hope for her, someone who would defend the weak. However, she questions whether Gong is still capable of becoming the vigilante after seeing him grieve over his friend. But as the story progresses, we witness Jong's eyes light up with the fervor of vigilantism. The chairman is the brain behind it all, and he is more determined than ever to expose him.